You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch.
Hit you with the drop kick, Marty Jannetty. No, I hit you with the drop kick, Marty Jannetty. No, I hit you with the drop kick, Marty Jannetty. No, I hit you with that drop kick, Marty Jannetty.
Let me do this again.
No, it's live, pal.
First thing we'll discuss once we get the reviews after we get through the news here. And also just covering everything that's happened in the world of wrestling over the last week since Forbidden Door has happened. Anything prior to that we had missed really wasn't too important on the go home, besides like Okada showing up and just basically setting up the card for that pay-per-view. WWE didn't do anything of note that really we need to discuss here that we didn't already discuss prior to just covering everything going on our short hiatus to go to Forbidden Door. So, with that being said, let's jump into the news, man.
All right. Well, first bit of news is pertaining to one Io Shirai. No, she has not been on NXT for a while, and that's because her contract expires in a month, and she basically had let it be known that she want to go back to Japan to be with her family. Her contract is a no compete, so like she's free to go wherever she want. If she do go anywhere, it probably might be Stardom, but rumors and sources going around based in like she possibly might be done with wrestling altogether. So she been in business for almost like 20 years. Like she started wrestling, she was like 15, 16. She will be missed. One of my favorite athletes. The genius of the sky. So if we don't see Io Shirai no more, then we wish her the best in everything that she does, and wish her family the best. Next, I just had it pulled. There we go. Big E. Y'all remember when he broke his neck? Well, Rich Holland broke his neck. And he gave an update on his timetable for his return. Remember, he said he still didn't need surgery, but he said that his C1 vertebrae ain't forming bone yet. He had to wear the neck brace for an extra 4 to 6 weeks. 6 weeks after he was diagnosed, and the doctor said that he could take it off. He said he's going to get more scans at the end of the year, at the end of 1 year, to see how things going. So they indicate that he might be on the shelf at least to March of next year.
Probably longer than that, for real. I'm not wishing that on him, unfortunately. It will soon, Big E. On some other injury news, Bandito of ROH has currently been out of action with the injury in a recent update. The AAA star suffered an injury at Triple Mania. Triple X Tijuana spoke with Mass Lucha and said on his recovery, doctor told me to take 4 to 6 weeks of physical therapy. I've already taken 2 weeks. I hope we can make it for StarCast with Impact Wrestling. On if he'll be able to appear in Impact, we'll see. We will try to negotiate to see what can be done. The most wanted man needs to be everywhere. Those are his words on the situation. Also, Kyle O'Reilly recently endured an injury, and he has some current thoughts on that. Get to in 1 second. I'll come back to that actually, since for some reason this is on load anyway. Montez Ford recently spoke on last week on SmackDown. They had a like town hall type of thing with the Street Profits and the Usos, where it was brought up by Caleb Braxton, like, we heard you guys haven't been getting along recently. And they played it off and said, no, this is my brother. I don't know where you got that from. It's more just a tag team or whatever. Well, he said, you know, if it happens in the draft, it happens. The support will still be there between each other 100%. But myself personally, as a kid, I always grew up and seen myself being the WWE World Champion. And as you were saying, that I recently noticed that he's been putting the work in the gym and getting himself a lot bigger for that situation, if that's what should arise in the future. So I can see them possibly with that muscle gain showing that dedication to putting the work in there. You know, Vince loves that, so they'll probably give him a shot with that.
I think with them is, I think they will get split up during the draft. I don't think it's gonna be one turning on the other one. There's when we're two have a draft coming up, they usually have one around after SummerSlam usually. So
back to the Kyle O'Reilly injury update. He gave an update on his health, noting that he's dealing with a lot of nagging injuries. O'Reilly last wrestled on June 8th episode of Dynamite, where he faced Jon Moxley.
I knew about that.
He said this October he'll be wrestling for 17 years now. It's been a lot of bumps and a lot of wear and tear on your body. Fortunately, nothing serious has really happened to me. I've been hurt a lot, but I've been injured, but I've always been able to grind through, make the day show up, perform as well as I can in the ring despite whatever I was nursing. Sometimes the medical staff need to save us from ourselves as wrestlers. We'll go until the wheels fall off. My shoulder is hurt okay, so I won't do any moves where I land on my shoulder. We're crazy like that. This is something I've been dealing with, and it's a nagging thing that I've been dealing with, specifically pretty bad for the last 5 years. In the last few weeks of wrestling AEW, I've been really banged up and didn't know the extent of it until now. I still don't know all the information, so I don't want to disclose exactly what's happening with me. I need more information. I should probably know this week what the recovery time is going to be and what the recovery will entail. All I can do is, if there is time, to use it to remotivate myself and get in better shape and come back stronger than ever before. Once again, they're giving very hockey answers to the injuries because they're not really disclosing what the injuries are. They're just saying that they're hurt. My final bit of news I had, so from this past UFC 276, from this past Saturday night, where the main event actually concluded after the completion of Money in the Bank 2022, which were both in Las Vegas Saturday night. In the main event, we saw Israel Adesanya defend successfully his middleweight championship against Jordan Cannonier. Prior to the fight, he made his walkout and he used the Undertaker's entrance as his own, with purple lights and the music. He came out with the urn and the hat, not the trench coat. And ironically, it so happens that Vince McMahon and Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, and Pat McAfee were all sitting ringside. Pat McAfee going full kayfabe, even signing his neck injury from the end of the pay-per-view by wearing a neck brace to the UFC event. Izzy says he didn't realize that Vince was going to be ringside for it, so I'm wondering, like, did he even ask permission to do it, or did he just fucking do it? And then they were like, well, we're cool with it because we like what you did after the fact. That's what it comes to sound about. Because Undertaker also had comments on it. He said it's pretty fucking cool. He thinks that also when Tyson Fury sat up like the Undertaker after getting knocked down in the match, he thought that was pretty cool too. So apparently neither them or the WWE have a problem with it. I almost guarantee they're going to show that shit during Raw tonight. I thought that, like, at least if he lost, they weren't. But the fact that he won, they probably would acknowledge it somehow. But the fact that they're cool with it shows they're not going to go after the UFC like, yeah, give me some money for that. Which they usually could be petty and do that, you know what I'm saying? But he said he just thought of it during the week. He was a kid that grew up during the Attitude Era back in the day. He jumping off couches, broke his arm doing shooting star presses one time, he said. So it just came to him and he said he just wanted to do it just for the show. That's the last of my news, man. You got anything else?
One more thing is just pertaining to Natalia and Ronda Rousey real quick. And again,
oh man, Go ahead, bro. You good?
Cool.
Mm.
Right. Y'all remember the whole thing last when she was cracking on her, talking about her sister and her OnlyFans and everything like that. Well, she talked about how they were real close. She trained with her. She helped her before she even signed a contract. She talked about they had private training sections, how she's a pioneer. She said that everything came easily for Ronda. She said their beef happened because when she said some of that changed when she came back because without being the jerk, she was being arrogant. Natalia said she dismissed her and said you didn't want to have kids and put wrestling first. She said, well, maybe I don't want to have kids. Maybe that's not what I want in life. I don't think I should be shamed for that. I never want to be a mom. It's never in my heart. Don't dismiss every single thing I've done in this industry. I'm sorry that my love and my passion is greater than yours will ever be. You're naturally good at something. That makes you arrogant. Don't dismiss me for the love that you don't have. Understand? Addie coming with the heat. No, that was it of the news, though.
All right.
I got one more thing of news pertain, but that will pertain once we get to that part.
All right, then let's get into Forbidden Door. We'll start off our Forbidden Door coverage.
Okay, so the first match of Forbidden Door was the tag match between.
Hold on, before we even go there. Yeah, they started with the buy-in.
Did anything happen on the buy-in?
I mean, there were 3 matches on the buy-in.
Oh yeah.
So, in the opening match of the buy-in, we had Hiroki Goto and shitty ass Yoshihashi versus QT Marshall and Aaron Solo, who saw Bishamon, which is the name of the tag team of Goto and shitty ass Yoshihashi, defeat QT Marshall and Aaron Solo of the Factory in this one.
Damn, QT Marshall can't buy a win.
No, he can't. Went about 8 minutes. Was finished with a super kick into a fighterman's carry backbreaker that set up the GTR powerbomb combination by Bishamon to get the finish on Aaron Solo at the almost 9-minute mark of the match. Next match was a hoss fight between Lance Archer and Nick Comoroto. Lance Archer, in this case, though, he's a member of the AEW roster, was representing Suzuki-gun here, so technically, I guess he represented New Japan on this pay-per-view. He destroyed Nick Comoroto, blackout with the finish after about a 6-minute mark. Comoroto did not get his shit in, I would say. I mean, a little bit, but barely. The best match of the buy-in, though, was Swerve on Our Glory. Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee taking on El Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. This was a great match. You could probably guess who was the victor here, but it was a pretty even match going throughout it with Kanemaru and Desperado working over Keith Lee's leg. That's usually their strategy in most matches. They end up attacking a joint and then focus on that for the whole match, try to get the victory that way. They tried that on Keith Lee, which they could not. Swerve jumped in, trying to show his loyalty to Keith Lee and their tag team still. By getting in and hitting the house call on Kanemaru at one time to make the save for Keith Lee. Then you also had some great spots by both in the match. Kanemaru at one point in time spitting the whiskey in Keith Lee's face, which distracted him for a quick second, but Keith Lee ended up getting it back together, though. In the end, ended up getting a brain buster for 2 on Desperado. He got to trading elbows with Swerve. Lee came back in. Desperado had to kick that knocked him to the floor from there. Like I said in the finish, Kanemaru loaded up the whiskey and spit it in Keith Lee's face. Tried to hit a roll-up, only got 2. Swerve back in the ring with a double stomp on Kanemaru. Big Bang Catastrophe for the victory after about the 12-minute mark of the match. Pretty dope match. Just so happens, like, these I ended up having to go back and watch after the pay-per-view because we were on our way to the pay-per-view at the time because our time were off a little bit since we're East Coast time, which is an hour off Chicago time, which is, I guess, what? Mountain time? No. Whatever the middle of the country is. They're not Eastern Standard, so Central
time.
Yeah, Central Standard. So there's an hour off from us, so we ended up being an hour off of the time we should have been there to see the buy-in, so we got there just as the opening match happened. There was one more match on the buy-in I do need to get to here also. which was also after post-match. Team Taz popped up in the skybox, making fun of Lee and making fun of Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland, saying, if y'all call yourselves Kobe and Shaq, then we got to be Jordan and Pippen, especially since we in the United Center. This caused what's my name? Ricky Starks to jump on the mic and say Keith Lee was like a broke ass Phillip Banks. And they seem to be throwing out a challenge, but not throwing out a challenge, continuing their feud they've been having over the last month and a half or so, maybe 2 months, I'd say. The last match of the buy-in was the DKC, Kevin Knight, Alex Coughlin, and Yui Mura of the LA Dojo taking on Matt Caster and the Gun Club. So at the beginning of this match, Danhausen came out and made a video for the Ass Boys, which caused them to leave ringside and run off from the match that they were in, which made it now a 4-on-2 match. This made no difference because the members of the LA Dojo got some of this shit off for still getting their ass whooped. Daddy Ass got his ass involved in the match. He being Billy Gunn, got off the Famouser. He got off a couple moves.
All attitude air shit.
Mm-hmm. And actually, the Famouser set up the mic drop for a fast pin after about 5 minutes on the DKC. That DKC guy's had a terrible week. He had to take the pin here, though he at least got some of his shit off in this match, because the match that he had against Hook, he was just owned in like 2 minutes or less, so it didn't even make a difference.
Whooping ass by everybody.
So the show starts off with commentary being of Kevin Kelly of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Taz was also on commentary, and then we also had Man in the Mask. I can't remember his name right now. Excalibur, thinking of something else. Sorry. So they did the bulk of the commentary, but you also had a couple matches where Tony Schiavone jumped in, the Sting match particular for him. And the last 2 matches, the same man in the main event, JR was on the commentary for. Also, he was on the commentary for the match with Orange Cassidy and Will Ospreay. So the show starts off, opening match, Eddie Kingston, Shota Umino, Shuda to some, and Wheeler Yuta taking on Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara, Minoru Suzuki. This is literally the moment we came in. We just missed the fan seating in Judas, but we did get to walk in, or at least I did, while he was on the concourse. Got to walk in for Kazuhira Hinare. That was my first time getting to do that live, so that was pretty dope. The music of Minoru Suzuki. This was a great match, wild match that was all over the place. Everybody got their shit in. You had a strong South fight in the middle of it with Kingston and Minoru Suzuki. Jericho ended up getting a lot of shit done on him. Eventually, he did get his shit in. He ended up actually being the one that got the victory at the end of the match. Sammy Guevara was involved, had another spot here where he went for a move on somebody who moved out of the way, so he ended up hitting the move on Ty Conti, who got involved in the match for her man, as always. Back in the match at the end, coming up, Deuce Effect was missed. Tornado DDT to a brain buster, give Yuma Umino a 2 count. Jericho had to be saved from the walls. He was put in by Umino, and as on the other side of that, Suzuki was hitting Eddie Kingston with the God's Power Driver, as Umino thought he had the match won and went to fire up, turned around right into a Juice Effect to his face. Match ended at about 18-minute mark at the pin by Jericho on Umino. Next up, they had a recap of what everything that led into, the build that led into the next match was the Ring of Honor Tag Team Titles / IWGP Tag Team Title match of FTR Triple Threat versus United Empire versus Roppongi Vice, Roppongi Knights. Pretty great match. The story of the match became FTR was just one where Dax Harwood ended up having an elbow injury early in the match. Or I think it's maybe at a separated shoulder, one or the other. Dislocated elbow or a separated shoulder. Which caused them to have to go to the back end and getting it taped up. This led to Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb, for the most part, taking advantage of this. Dominating a major part of this match during the early and beginning parts. With a little bit spreading in of some Roppongi Vice getting their shit in here too. Also, we saw a spot where they kept teaming up on Wheeler. as he had no partner to tag into, as eventually he had to eventually tag in Rocky Romero because his partner wasn't at ringside after taking damage for so long. Even to the point where there was a spot where he had his head stuck on the top turnbuckle as Great O'Khan was smashing his ass into his face on the camera. the camera that's right on the ring post. So that was interesting to see also. Eventually, though, FTR was able to come back together as two, because eventually Wheeler made his way back down to ringside. They had a Spike Strong Zero for a 2-count on Cobb. Wheeler diving in for the save once he had made it back to ringside. Romero and Harwood traded roll-ups into an insecurity staggered Harwood. It didn't matter. From there, you got the big rig by FTR on Rocky Romero to claim both sets of tag team titles at about the 16-minute mark of the match. Promo before this next match, Juice Robinson and Jay White don't think much of their competition, and Juice Robinson officially said the match between Will Ospreay and Orange Cassidy is not for the title. It's just a number one contenders match because I'm still the champion. I wasn't there for that match. I never lost my belt because I wasn't pinned. Title wasn't even on the scene from when they said that the title changed hands, so I don't recognize it. Basically what he was saying. Next match, the 4-way for the All-Atlantic title. Great match here. Pac versus Miro the Redeemer versus Malachi Black versus Clark Connors. Clark Connors was the butt of the joke of this match because he took damage from everybody. But he did get a nice fire spot at the end of this match where he ended up putting Miro through a table at ringside. He also tried to fire up from there, getting off some more of his moves before he was beaten back down again. Malachi Black got his shit in his match, but he actually didn't factor into the end of the match as much as you would think. Well, he did, but he didn't. He didn't get as much shit in during the match. I guess I would put it in that way. One point in time, the game over was about to be set in by Miro. Malachi Black comes in, gives him the miss right to the face. That basically takes out Miro. From there, Malachi Black had Clark Connors in some type of like a leg submission, almost like a knee bar, which led to the Black Arrow from the top. 5-pack to separate that. He hit that. Got the pin on Clark Connors for the victory, and he is your new and first All-Atlantic champion. Good for Pac. At about a 15-minute mark. Actually, I'm sorry, he hit the 450 and then one with the brutalizer on Connors, so he made Connors tap out. But Pac is the victor. He's been with the company since the beginning, so good to see him with a championship here. His first, I would say, in pro wrestling, as far as like the majors, in like almost 5 years since he had that cruiserweight title in 2017 in WWE. I mean, he did have
a belt, but
yeah, but he had for like a year though. He was the face of that division before I decided to give it over to Enzo.
Yeah, but I know, but that was when it was like
they
didn't really care about the cruiserweight.
They didn't, but they kind of did. You remember he had that feud with Austin Aries too. That was some good cruiserweight-ish stuff. Even though that was like a WrestleMania pre-show, but still,
match between them was okay.
They had a trilogy. They had some good matches with him.
They were okay.
They could have did more. I think that was WWE booking more than them. Next match, we had Tony Schiavone on
He
commentary.
did get the "You Deserve It" chant from the crowd, which was nice. Everybody was chanting "You Deserve It." He does deserve it. So shout out to Pac though.
Next match,
dirty bastard.
Next match,
in a good way.
It was funny. It was funny in the promo when Miro was like, he was said, well, first it was Ishii because he didn't know Ishii was gonna be out with injury from this one with a knee injury, so they held him out. And Clark Connors ended up losing the match to Ishii to get into it, so that's why they put Clark Connors in his replacement. But he said, Ishii, you can tell the bastard and the pagan. I'm coming for them, and I'm gonna send them to the maker. And when you get there, you tell them I want to have a message. He always said I want to have a word, or something like that. I'm like, he has beef with God, bro. Like, that's awesome. I don't have beef with God. That's funny, interesting that he does. So the next match is Dudes with Attitudes versus the Bullet Club. Dudes with Attitudes will be Sting, Darby Allin, and Shingo Takagi. Another injury loss to this. This match particularly was Hiromu Takahashi. It's been great to see the Ticket Time Bomb and Daryl the Cat. But he had to be held up by injury. Actually, it wasn't injury. I think he had a cold. Fever. And because of COVID concerns, they probably wouldn't let him come over.
Yeah.
So they held Hikuleo out on the match. who was on the other side with Bullet Club. So instead, on Bullet Club side, you got the Young Bucks making a Bullet Club appearance for the first time since they left New Japan Pro Wrestling. And El Phantasmo, my nigga LP with the loaded boot. But he did not have the loaded boot this time. Great match. Loved how it started out where Shingo comes out, Darby Allin makes his entrance, and everybody's like, where's Sting? So Bullet Club comes out. They start doing their thing. LP even had the dope jacket with the glow in the dark lights on the back, going through it with the rainbow colors or whatever. Lights go out. They look up to the rafters and they see, I'm guessing this wasn't Sting because of how this happened so fast. That's probably just a dummy dude that looked like Sting. But they had Sting up in the rafters a la 1997 WCW. And he points with the bat. And the lights go out again. And the lights come back up. And Sting is on top of the face entrance ramp and does a dive onto the Bucks and Phantasmo to start the match out. So that was pretty dope because he's 62 and crazy. This one was pretty dope. I like that. It ended, everybody got their stuff into the most part. You had Sting, he ate and no soul.
That's the best part of the match for me. That's the best part for me.
Multiple super kicks from the Bucks.
He no sold that shit.
And then hit them both with the Scorpion Death Drop after hitting them with some lariats. He also took a nipple twister from El Phantasmo, gave one back to El Phantasmo in the match. Darby Allin has a great coffin drop spots. Eventually, we got down to the end of the match where it came down to the Bucks tried to go for the BT trigger. They miss it, and that's where Sting hit the double Scorpion Death Drops on them, and then you had the nipple twister spot. The finish of the match came down to Shingo Takagi coming in, blasting Phantasmo with a clothesline for 2, and then last of the Dragon, which he actually, it started to look like a Made in Tokyo and reversed it and flipped it to the last of the Dragon at the 12, almost 13-minute mark of the match. Your winners, dudes with attitudes. I like to also on this is fuck Tony Schiavone. I have multiple fuck Tony Schiavone moments because since we missed Dynamite the week before, he had a great one I'm going to bring up here because this is almost the only time you really saw him on the pay-per-view was in this match. He did have a nice spot in this match where he recognized the history of the name of the dudes with attitudes. I guess it goes back to 1989 group that Sting had a tag team with like I think Bobby Duncombe and some cats back in WCW. And they used it again like a couple years later in 91. So there's a little bit of a history to it. And of course, you had the man who was formerly in WCW with Sting at the time bring it up. But here's my fuck Tony Schiavone moment of the week. So on the Go Home Dynamite prior to this pay-per-view of Forbidden Door, they had Stokely Hathaway, Jade Cargill, and Kiera Hogan that come out with cutting a promo. And they're talking about they're in this new city and we're applying for new baddies. He said, you know, first we're gonna need a drum roll, please. You know, Tony's holding the microphone, and it has to say, I said drum roll, please. And he made Tony do this. I'll die. Totally hold him up.
With Tony like that.
He said, ladies,
you need to be
you must be beautiful. Leave all your statistics. And for God's sakes, ladies, this is a PG show. PG pictures, please. And as they walked away, of course. And Tony, cut the shit.
He needs his BFF back. Just keep letting him get picked on like that. Where Britt at? Britt, you got it.
That's right. So next they show a backstage segment. Chris Jericho, they're showing Shota Umino getting interviewed. Chris Jericho comes out. They try to pat him on the back. Yeah, bro, you've come a long way. I want to apologize for the last time we saw each other with this. And he throws a fireball in his face.
He's a wizard.
I like when they walk up that it's like Cool Hand Ange and Money Matt. But Cool Hand Ange, he has like a, you know, he has a pocket knife. As if he has a pocket comb. So he shoots it like, fling! You would think it'd be intimidating, but he's just brushing his hair. Okay. So next match up was AEW Women's Title. Toni Storm versus Thunder Rosa, who had a great entrance coming out in full regalia, headdress and all. This is a great match between the two. Very even between the two for most of the match also. Eventually broke the outside, Rosa snapping off a couple Northern Lights suplexes.
Trial.
But got blocked at a Death Valley driver on the apron. Storm hits a DDT on the floor, followed by a hip attack and another tornado DDT for 2. Rosa back in with a nasty Fire Thunder Dart for 2, followed by the final reckoning.
Trial.
Her AEW trainers, Dustin Rhodes move to get the victory and retain her title.
Trial.
After the surprise kickoff for the Fire Thunder driver, which usually gets the job done. Next, we have JR join commentary.
Trial.
He gets a nice ovation coming out. We have the IWGP United States title match. Will Ospreay taking on Orange Cassidy.
Match of the night.
A lot of people's match
Trial.
of the night. And ironically, I thought, I listen to a lot of different people. The boys over at What Culture, shout out to them. They gave it 5 stars, said it was their match of the night. My homie Wrestling and Randy,
Trial.
who was at Forbidden Doors. I wish you could have found him because I was gonna say what's up. One of my favorite black YouTubers out here, especially the very few of them that talk about wrestling. He was there. He said that was also like his match of the night for the match and what happened after, which we'll get to in a second. Surprisingly, my boys over at Golden Raw didn't like this match. I'm like, they were like the only people I heard who didn't. They said it felt like it started slow, it ended up working itself up by the end of 5 minutes, but they thought it felt like it was kind of a mismatch between the two styles. I'm like, I don't know what y'all was watching. I thought it was dope.
I think that's just more of
it's an opinion.
It's more of his character.
Everybody has
I think it's more opinion because, like, the thing with Orange Cassidy is that, like,
Trial.
he literally plays to his character. So, like, he don't really turn it up until, like, later in the match. It start, like, what's the name? Like, that's what makes him so good. That's my match. That's easily my match of the night. That's probably one of my match of the year candidates. Like, it's already locked in. Locked in. That match was awesome.
This is a great match that found Cassidy trying to avoid all of Ospreay's onslaught and at the same time getting off his stuff, but in the Orange Cassidy way, as we say, the short kicks,
lazy
kicks, the lazy punches, putting his hands in his pocket, but then turning up at the last second out of nowhere and, hitting those flip over stunners and such. Eventually in this match, it got to a point after a high cross body, it had the tornado DDT that got blocked, a top rope forearm to the head dropped Cassidy, but as Ospreay was ready to go for the hidden blade, Cassidy cleverly just collapses. So that way he has to set him up again for it. From there, you got some karate kicks that put Cassidy down until he powered up to his feet. Great spots towards the end of the match. Where you had Ospreay trying to hit a standing shooting star press on Cassidy, but Cassidy got his knees up, setting up a beach break for a close 2. Hit the orange punch, tried to hit the orange punch with a counter into the Os cutter for 2. Missed the hidden blade again. Stormbreaker was countered into a Hurricanrana for 2. Ospreay blasts him with the clothesline and then gets a hidden blade for 2 more for hitting another Stormbreaker to finally get the finish at the 16-minute mark. So he did get the victory, but he had to put a lot more work in than he expected to. Oh, it was a lot more. I cut a lot out just for the review.
No. I'm talking about the